whether on 302.6.4, under safety precautions, the subject should not be left unattended, whether that should be the subject shall not be left unattended. That's
Should be a shall.
But I mean, if the concern is that that person is going to go into some respiratory or some kind of physical condition that might affect their survival, whether that person should not be or shall not be left unattended, is what they have as a question. They also had it as
There was also a question
Yeah.
about the spit mask in general, particularly with respect to mentally ill folks or juveniles,
What about it?
whether there was any consideration that may have been some reports that they could be dangerous potentially in certain circumstances.
For example,
Should somebody with mentally spitting, that a spit mask could be dangerous?
but it says spit mask should not be used in situations where the restrained person is bleeding profusely from the area on the mouth or nose, or if there are any indication that the person has a medical condition, such as difficulty breathing or vomiting, whether that in itself there should not be a shall, because you have a pre-existing condition that can be visibly determined to be a precondition to a higher risk of death, and whether that should not be a shall instead of a should. So that's the concern. That's in
Well, I
one
mean,
specifically is the
I've seen
concern.
guys who bit off, half of their own tongue, so they're bleeding and they're spitting blood at us. So they're visibly bleeding from their mouth, but they're also spitting at us. So he's getting a spit mask, even though he's bleeding from his face.
So, but the question is whether that is.
So it's a should.
So just a question for me is, are there circumstances, I understand we can pick out, a particular description or somewhere on the spectrum where like that person's getting a spit mask. The question that I thought was raised by folks was, is there somewhere on the spectrum of people who potentially could have a spit mask used against them where that would be potentially dangerous to them? And so, the areas that people talked about, I heard, and I don't know if there's any evidence on this or not, but mentally ill people, people who are juveniles.
Why would it be dangerous?
I don't know, that's what the question is. So part of the thing was, which someone indicated was, if someone's vomiting, right?
Right, that's in there. It says take out the spit mask.
Yeah, but this was
This was the concern raised.
Yeah,
So
because-
I don't know, I have no idea what the evidence is. So if you asking me, whether that situation, I have no clue, I never heard of spit mask before, these meetings. So, but the question was whether there are some circumstances, in which there is a danger. And the one thing I think, already 2 seconds of an online research, I later looked at it. There is some literature clearly in this area, particularly out of the UK, that calls into question the safety of spit masks. And so,
Well, it also depends on what kind of spit mask they are. I mean,
Mhm.
ours are just, it's like, I know, they're giant bags, with elastic at the thing.
the
There are
pictures I
others
looked at, they
where,
look like a mosquito net. But
yeah,
I-
basically.
But I just don't know, that was the question that some people had, was, has there been any consideration about, whether they are dangerous to people in a particular situation? I haven't looked at it.
I can't think of a time where anybody's ever been hurt by one.
and I'm more focused on, and you're right. I mean, this is a concern. I'm more focused on the wording and whether to add our favorite word here, exigent circumstances, doesn't fit here, because you're saying spit mask should not be used in situations where the restrained person is bleeding profusely from the area of the mouth or nose. Should not be used. So even if you're saying, well, it should be a shall not be used unless that person has bit his tongue
And it
and is
should-
spitting blood at us.
there's a
But then
unless he bit his lip, unless he is,
But
spitting
then
out vomit. I mean, there's a ton of,
but it's
things that we
vomiting
could-
says that there's a condition that
there's
can
a
cause.
bunch of, scenarios that we could talk about where he, has a bloody nose and he's spitting that blood out, or he's got a cut on his face and he's spitting that blood out at us.
Why should it say should instead of shall in that particular paragraph? I'm just reading it. Spit mask should not be used in situations blah blah blah, and then it says, in such cases, prompt medical care should be obtained. If a person vomits while wearing a spit mask, the spit mask should be promptly moved if discarded. Why should that not be a shall?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a pretty with olors and capsicum spray should be thoroughly decontaminating. Shall. I mean, so in that particular incident, because the concern is medical, I mean, and I understand that unless there's an exigent circumstance, which can be, that wording can be added there, and it asks the police officer the discretion to say, you bit your lip and you're spitting blood at us because that's what your intent is. Under that intent, we can do it. But that if somebody is bleeding from the mouth because they fell on a dynamic takedown, and they're just bleeding blood at you because that's not their intent to be physically aggressive with their fluids, whether it is in the best interest as a medical condition, a preventative measure, not to apply something like that. And that's what they're honing on. It's just this one particularly is important to them, because if it is a possibility of that something could happen, the person could incur a much different injury, and they're not being aggressive with their blood. We understand that there is a situation up here. Why should it not be a shall?
From the get-go, I mean, I see what you're saying, George, but I think it's permissive. Spit mask should not be used in situations where a restrained person, because as Sam has pointed out, there are not, just because somebody is bleeding from the mouth doesn't mean that there isn't some other thing that's occurring, and it shouldn't prevent us from being able to use the spit mask.
And what I'm saying is,
so if somebody got punched in the lip and they're bleeding significantly, profusely, I mean, what you would describe as profusely and what I might, based on my experience of being on the street, might be different.
Oh, I've been shot at as a military guy. I got shrapnel over my stomach. I have seen blood coming out of my body profusely. So and that's why I'm a Pimple Heart.
Okay, so yours might vary from somebody else then. Yours and mine might vary from somebody else. But what I'm saying is if you start putting shall in, it starts limiting our ability to protect ourselves.
And what I'm saying is whether spit masks shall not be used in situations unless exigent circumstances exist, where the restrained person is bleeding profusely from the ear and the mouth or nose, whether that language of a compromise, which gives you the discretion but still keeps to the shall, is not feasible.
And here, I mean, I'm also particularly interested in that. I mean, because this is where I thought it was interesting. When the person vomits while wearing a spit mask, the spit mask should be promptly removed and discarded. Trying to understand why that's a should instead of a shall.
We introduce as an emergency item because it's not on the.
I mean, particularly when it's not, it's changed
to
from
discussion handcuffing.
It's changed from Lexipol's language.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think, is it changed?
Losing to right here. Just the right here. To me, that just seems, I'm guessing that the reasoning behind that is that there's some potential danger to somebody who vomits while they're wearing a spit mask. But anyway, that's the question I have. Maybe there's some reason for it. I'm just curious what it is.
Harry, we're focusing right now on the
You see where I see that? Where I saw it?
302.6. 302.6 under spit mask should not be used in situations where a certain person is bleeding profusely, and we are asking why should we shall not. And then we offer the option of maybe in between comments or items, under exigent circumstances, but add the shall to it because it's a medical condition, and that's what we had. Right, Easy?
Those are the questions folks had. That's why I got to get back.
okay, so I would mean,
Yeah, from the last commission.
I don't have the old H6 in front of me, but going back, you know, so officers utilizing spit masks should ensure the spit mask is applied properly. All that stuff should not be used and should not, I still think that language should be there because it needs to allow us, if you start putting shall in there, it limits what we can do to protect ourselves. And just because somebody might be bleeding from the mouth doesn't mean that we should automatically have to remove a spit mask to protect ourselves.
We're in agreement on the fact that we don't want anyone under any circumstances to engage in a behavior in which either a police officer is getting spit out or any circumstance at all. I think that we are just trying to focus on an instance in which there might be a medical condition which is not predicated by behavior, aggressive behavior, and whether the should is strong enough to create a circumstance in which it has to be evaluated at a higher level of discretion.
You mean if they're not being aggressive, if they're not?
If somebody's bleeding from their mouth, but obviously they're not using the liquids as a physical action of aggression.
To me, even if someone is being aggressive, if they suddenly start puking into their mask and putting them, yes, I don't know whether this is actually the evidence, but some people have suggested that if they start puking into the mask, it could cause them to suffocate or choke. I don't think it's okay to have a policy that suggests like just leave the mask on.
So I would say I agree more with that portion, with the vomiting, but up at the top, should with regard to with bleeding, I strongly believe that should not be changed.
So
I do agree that you could make the argument that if somebody is clearly vomiting, maybe even some language to add vomiting and
but is that
poses a risk to choking or something like that.
Well, maybe
Then it shall.
spit mask should not be used in a situation where a certain person is bleeding for some of the area on the mouth or nose, and shall not, and if there are indications that the person has a medical condition such as difficulty breathing or vomiting. I mean, that's a language change. Keep should not on the bleeding profusely, and as it shall not under vomiting or conditions in which possible asphyxia is exhibited. I mean, you just have to do a should and a shall.
Yeah, we can put that to the chief.
Huh?
Yeah, actually, a good solution to bring that section down, just to say.
I'll
should-
split it out.
Yeah, split it out and bring the second, the latter part, which is if the person's indicating a medical condition such as difficulty breathing or vomiting, move that down into the lower part with the.
So put nose, period. Bring another sentence that says.
So with respect to blood around the mouth or nose, that's a should. But with respect to indications that a person's having a medical condition,
Such as difficulty breathing or vomiting.
and or vomiting.
I hear it, I will make the changes and just ask the chief to give it a okey doke.
You okay with that, Art? Is that a good compromise?
That's fine.
I think that will do it. I mean, because I think it bridges, and we can sell that. If they don't wanna buy it, that's their problem, but we can sell it. We intend to sell it.
I remember, and honestly, I mean, I think from the meeting, all three of us were the strongest about it. I mean, people were saying police officers shouldn't have to endure being spat on because of health risk and so forth. I do think that's true, but I'm gonna go even further than that. You shouldn't have to be spat on, period.
Yeah.
So I don't care if it's for, health danger or not, I understand from a dignity standpoint.
Respect,
So-
for respect point of view.
So, but at the same time, I just think the response has gotta be proportional. And I generally, I don't really know anything about spit mouth, but it doesn't seem unreasonable to me, but if it would rise to the level of endangering someone's life, then I'm more concerned about it.
Alright, I'll put it to the chief.
The other question that they had, if we can just jump to another one, was only in, as it relates to, we're still in the wrap on 302.61.
All of that content was from our TNI. All of it is previous BPD sanctioned language.
So but the question to the chief is whether,
Exact language.
well, so the question to the chief is whether only qualified personnel have received training in the use of the wrap shall use this restraining device. Whether only the people that are qualified should use it instead of a should. Whether that qualification should be the trigger that allows the person to use it. From a liability point of view, if the person is trained and is documented as trained under that, and the person only trained uses it, there is no liability for the city, or at least there's a plausible deniability if anything happens where that person is in custody. But the should implies that somebody who has not received training in the use of the wrap can also use it. I think that needs to be reevaluated and reconsidered.
We'll look at that.
And that's just for police department liability issue. I mean, that's all I had with this, to be honest. I mean, did you have anything with this already at all? Those were the bigger ones, right? You were okay with the handcuffing? We can move on? And, Ari, were you?
You know,
Go ahead.
I'll read it separately. I'll go ahead.
Ari, so that you know, we had a conversation about 308 and it's being reworded to the original language of who has the authority to make the determination back to the city manager, and then instead of the chief being the person who makes the determination.
308, sorry.
That was in Canines.
Which one, sorry?
The doggy policy. I call it doggy policy.
Gotcha.
There's a language reverted to the city council. Proclamation, is that what we call it, or what do we call it? Directive?
It was a city council resolution.
Resolution, thank you.
And it's changed to verbatim, right?
Yeah. So the next one is, so we did 308 and we added 302, now we're in 314, discriminatory harassment. Folks have a chance to look at that, that's what we.
One that had the, we had sorry. I was just asking, because I thought somebody had a question about the gender, what's the organization?
Gender identity
Gender
versus,
identity.
that's under hate crimes.
Is that gonna relate to this? Remember you were gonna talk to some
No,
folks
if that was
about
under hate crimes.
hate crimes?
The next one. This one, she doesn't say why, but I think it had something to do with, oh, here we go. The discriminatory harassment, you guys were asking about the cancer being, pointed out specifically, and I had said last time that this is all verbatim from the city's policy, so. This is the most recent, so the city updated their own policy, in March of 2018. So we updated it with that, and it had the cancer mentioned in there. So H5 didn't have that in there.
I mean, each seven, right? Each seven.
Right, this one hasn't been issued.
Right.
Yeah, this is the change on genetic pregnancy, genetic information. Yeah, so this, we are saying,
I'm saying that the issue that you guys had with it last time was the mention of the history of cancer. I don't know where that came from, and I'm saying that it came from the city's policy. And it looks like, Kathy talked to the EEO officer about it and said it was meant to be an example and not an exclusive list.
yeah. it says at the beginning that is, such as, right? But it's not limited to, oh, the denial of promotions, sorry, I'm running the wrong one. Yeah, I'm just interested to know, I would be interested to know why instead of putting medical condition, they didn't put any and all medical conditions and keep it at that as a broader way to describe anything. You know?
Well, it says mental, oh yeah, it says medical condition associated with cancer.
Yeah. It's interesting. It might be that might be the end result of a lawsuit, we don't
Sure
know that,
it is.
or the settlement to some court, I don't know about. I mean, I don't have a problem with,
So are you saying you want it changed from the city's policy to something different? No?
no, we couldn't do that.
Okay.
We couldn't change city policy.
It's not changing city policy.
No, we can't.
It's not changing city policy. If it change,
Yeah, we can change
Repeat
our
policy
policy.
doesn't need to conform to what the city says in that regard. I mean, it's
I
nice.
mean, it needs to
but
conform.
No.
It can't be contrary to,
Right.
right? Yeah.
It could be more restrictive.
Right.
Yeah, but it's easier for the police department and the city to defend cases of sexual discriminatory harassment if the police department language is taken directly from the language of the city.
Maybe. Yeah.
It's uniformity of procedure and process.
Right.
I think that, I mean, I don't know why, I don't know any medical condition would be easier, right? But, so I have a question for clarification for the captain on 314.6, documentation of complaint. I have never seen anything as vague as that. That is so vague.
I don't even have this.
No, I know.
And so all complaints or allegations shall be thoroughly documented on forms or memoranda, and in a manner designated by the chief of police. The outcome of all reports shall be A, approved by the chief of police. That's it. And maintained in accordance with the department established records retention schedule. Okay. That doesn't tell me anything. I don't know what the department established records retention schedule is for allegations of discrimination and harassment
Right.
allegations.
But that would be,
B26.
that would be in the records and retention policy.
Okay. And the outcome of all reports should be approved by the chief of police. Is that under a binder somewhere that specifically talks about disciplinary actions? Or does it become a disciplinary process? I mean, there's a documentation of a complaint, there's a confidential as much as possible investigation. There's an alternative complaint process, and there's the outcome of, and then this reported to the chief, all allegations, and the outcome of all reports shall be approved by the chief of police.
Okay, so you're talking about, discipline?
I don't know, because it tells me the outcome of all reports should be approved by the chief of police. I mean, is that specifically relates to discipline, or does it relate to disposition? Does it relate to filing? Does it relate to retention, as it says on the second line? I mean, when all the complaints come up to me as a director of operations, the outcome should be submitted to the director of operations. The director of operations will put in the file that accordance to the employee for retention for a year. I mean, I'm very specific on my employee manual as it relates to even the disposition of complaints, what the process is, without having an implication of what the decision might be. If my HR department makes a memoranda of my 400 employees telling me that there's 15 allegations of discrimination, what do I do with a memoranda? Do I file it away? Do I file it in the employee's file? Does it
Well, under,
go to the city manager?
so under P26,
Page 26.
our old P26, which is personnel investigations, personnel complaints and employee misconduct. Personnel complaint is defined as an allegation of misconduct by a police department employee working within the police department received from any source. Employee misconduct is defined as, and there's a whole bunch of things, and two of those are let me get to that again. Discrimination and harassment. Number 6 and number 7. Okay, and there's a whole other slew of things, and then there's a whole process under which complaints are investigated and the disposition of such.
And
No,
we
it
have,
just-
we have a separate policy just for, personnel complaints.
And I just, it's very gray in terms of, I mean, it's just, I think, everything is perfect in its policy. 314.6, which is documentation of complaints that relates to the chief of police, that it's very gray. I mean, all complaints or allegations will be probably committed in forms of memoranda and the matter submitted by the chief of police. Okay? That matter should be, where does that matter? I mean, it doesn't relate to the policy here. It's just no referral to the other general order. The outcome of all reports should be approved by the chief of police. Okay? The outcome of all reports are reports, but they're not findings. And maintain in accordance with the department's salary records retention schedule, as it relates to findings, as it relates to investigations, as it relates to disciplinary records. It doesn't even say as what the retention schedule specifically is.
Because there's a whole separate policy about it.
Okay.
This is just telling you how to report it.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then basically in the old P26, which hasn't been converted yet, correct?
It's been converted, but it's not issued.
Right. So I'm just reading, I'm going by, because I don't have the new one in front of me, but I'm looking at the old P26 because I'm thinking we have a policy. So that is directing you on, directing a person on how to make or how to document it, basically. And then it kicks into P26 and how the complaint is investigated and dispositioned.
We could add a link or a reference to see the personnel complaint policy for further direction.
Would that make you feel better about that?
No, I mean, I just thought it was a gray area. I'm not trying to make the chief of police more responsible. I just feel like it was a little vague in terms of what the process is. If there is a general order in which specifically says what the outcome of the reports can be, and then that's fine. I mean, and the outcome would be a myriad of different things, right? I mean,
So I'll just say refer to personnel complaint policy, because that'll have all the
That's fine.
possible outcomes as well.
I don't have any other questions on this one. If you folks have. 319 is the next one. Hate crimes.
And then I think the question was for under B, 319.1.1B, we added gender identity. But I guess we had been waiting for language from George, Ray, gender identity.
Yeah, I mean, it's, the Transgender Law Center says that for them, it's more, it is gender, but it's also a gender identity. And it will be in compliance with the discriminatory and harassment, policy. What they said to me that if they had a policy already that was specifically delineated other specifics, that it should be added, and that should be gender identity or gender expression.
So so right now it says gender or gender identity. Do you want something else added to that?
But right now I have only gender on my thing.
Yeah, because we talked about this months ago and I had sent an updated policy.
I think the best thing would be just to copycat copy what the city of Berkeley is gender identity, or gender expression.
Okay, so those
So it'd
three
be-
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, B should be gender identity, or gender expression, and you're
Okay,
covered, and
fine.
that's just perfect.
Done.
And it's the city. I didn't have anything else on these hate crimes, at all. I was part of this when it was first done, so I mean, it was an amazing piece of work that the city did a great job with this, the department did a great job with this. We don't have any other questions on that one. So so that folks know, I'm putting kind of like approved next to 314, 319. We had the conversation about 302. 320, department use of social media.
So this one, like Kathy said in her email, we're actually still working on it. You had some questions about adding in the council's recommendations for booking photos. So we're still working on it for a variety of other reasons.
So
So we'll,
bump.
yeah, so you can bump this,
Okay.
this thing on the back burner.
What did it jump? I have report preparation jumping from.
Yeah, no, she talks about report preparation in her email, but on the agenda it goes straight to death investigation.
Yeah. It's not there, so.
Which there was some discussion about the times in which the coroner is notified, and she just wanted clarification on whether or not you guys approved it or want it to be pushed to the chief. So I forwarded the information about the notifications that are on there that the homicide division doesn't feel are necessary.
So you're saying you checked with homicide?
Yeah, homicide originally, when they reviewed this policy, crossed out certain, letters, on, under, what was it? 330.5, so they had crossed out some things, deaths in operating rooms, deaths at state hospitals, and deaths of a commercial patient. They didn't want those in there because it's not something that we do. But I think that there was question last time that we should just leave it in just in case. So I forwarded the information up the chain, and
But it's not on the agenda, so we cannot discuss it unless people
It is
wanna.
on- it is on the agenda.
Where?
Investigation.
330,
3:30.
death investigation.
Oh, I'm in report preparation. Sorry. My apologies. Sorry about that. Can't even
I mean, I think our point on this last time was that, there were two sections of the government code and public safety code that seemed to place these responsibilities on the coroner, right, for reporting. And that presumably the purpose of the Lexipol policy, of Lexipol including, these in were to put the police in the role of kind of facilitating the, coroner's compliance with their obligation, because the police would be the ones who are in possession of the knowledge, would have that information about when somebody is dead in the hospital.
We wouldn't.
We would never have that information.
I'm having a really hard time squaring that though, I mean, why?
Why wouldn't they call and tell us that somebody was in a coma and they died? I mean, unless they were in a coma because they were a victim of crime.
Right.
Then we would already know. But
All
if-
deaths in operating rooms, if somebody goes in for a knee surgery and dies during surgery, the hospital brings them down to the morgue and notifies the coroner's office. They don't notify us.
This was the notice.
To the coroner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the thing I I just didn't understand why it was, to me, it all presumes that you have an op, so if you
Right.
don't have it, the policy's us, then it will apply.
Yeah, I mean, we,
But if you do have it, if there's the legal requirement.
they have a hospitals are mandated reporters, so if they come in, somebody comes in and they're the victim or appear to be the victim of a crime, the hospital notifies us.
I get that, but if you guys are also mandatory reporters.
What about a political shooting?
I think it's interesting because there's, it's talking about, a known or suspected suicide, and it's obvious that we would get notified for that and we would know about it, right? But it's specifically saying all deaths in a hospital,
Where are you looking at? What?
Q, all deaths in a state hospital.
So 330.5, which letter?
It was Q.
Q. Yeah.
I mean, so.
Why don't you just say something like, I just should be called in.
I mean, all deaths of state hospital patients that are reported to BPD.
Yeah, why don't you just put something like that? Coroner shall be called in any of the following cases any of the following cases come to the attention of the police department or a member of the police department.
Q, you're saying.
Yeah, I'm saying just make it clear this applies in events when you actually receive notice of it.
You're just talking about Q?
What am I talking about?
So
Two, I'm
not
talking about
all
the
All
preamble.
three?
I'm just talking about the preamble. Under 330.5 coroner request, the second sentence, the coroner shall be called in any of the following cases, when you say, shall be called,
In the following cases, comma, if a member has knowledge of the,
right,
to the
either
extent a
that
member has knowledge of it.
or the coroner shall be called, in the event, or in instances in which the police department.
But that's presuming that we know about it. You see what I'm saying? The coroner,
And they are called, they're called by the hospital.
yeah, the hospital calls it, and that's what I mean, is that,
This all to me, I don't really know what to say. This all to me seems to be
It's what you said last
institute,
time.
well, that's true.
Well, but it doesn't make sense
But here's the
otherwise.
thing
Why,
is that-
why would Lexipol include this if there's some disconnect here?
Well, but
Yeah.
Lexipol says they include because of the government code requirement.
Right.
And so the government code requirements are saying that there's a requirement from the police department when they know that this stuff to contact the coroner.
right.
So that's all
So this is, in other
saying.
words, like standard practice for law enforcement agencies around California to the extent that they use Lexipol. But you guys are saying that's not our practice because we would never come into possession of that information. That
But
But you know what,
this
it's
is
just
the
saying,
premise
it's
of this.
saying
Is
that
that
the
you have
coroner
it.
should call, but it's not
Yeah.
directing the police
No, no,
department
it
to
says
do
the
it.
coroner shall be called.
yeah.
Right.
Right.
Not
But it's
But the
not-
government code section is not saying that the police department shall call.
It's saying
But
somebody
the whole-
needs
but the whole
to.
Totally, totally right.
I have to look at what the government code says. This to me just
It's
seems to be.
verbatim from the government code, this coroner request. So the coroner shall be notified on all of these things, I get that. But who is doing the notification is
What's
very
the point of
different.
having a police policy then?
Because a
But it
lot of
doesn't
police
apply to the
agencies
police.
have, and I said this last time, a lot of police agencies have coroners. We don't have a coroner.
Well, that wouldn't make any sense, cause that'd be the coroner calling the coroner. So it doesn't, this seems to apply to police departments calling the coroner in some circumstances. That's
Mhm.
all I'm saying. It can't be the coroner calling the coroner. That doesn't make any sense.
No, it's not.
So,
It's not directing, I don't know that it's directing anybody, I think that it's just stating a fact that the coroner shall be called in.
we don't have to find out the policy. I mean, to me, it seems to be some indication that there's supposed to be a policy that someone in the police department, in certain circumstances, if they have the knowledge. If you don't have the knowledge, then you don't have the knowledge of it, then there could be no requirement for it. It's not saying you have to investigate it. And so perhaps there's just a a brief clause that could be added at the beginning saying, you know, if it becomes known to the police department, or something along those lines.
So in addition to the hospital calling the coroner, the police department should call?
Well, it's a little on here that says the coroner shall be called.
Right, which the hospital is going to do in those highlighted
But we want to
incidents.
have a police policy. Why would Lexipol create a policy, a model policy for police department?
Yeah.
If it wasn't in some intent that the police department, then it would be in the model hospital policy. It wouldn't be in the model police policy.
I honestly, I don't know what Lexipol was thinking. We're just telling you practicality, that never in my 24 years of law enforcement service have I ever received a phone call from the hospital, hey, we just lost a patient on
But if
surgery.
you did,
Have you ever called the coroner?
Yeah,
You have?
yeah.
In
Under
what
all the
circumstances?
rest of those circumstances.
And all the other, yeah, an unintended death, a car accident, a fatal car collision where the person's not transported, somebody's shot, there's a criminal. Basically, the coroner has custody of, they have jurisdiction of all dead bodies,
All
Right.
deaths.
right? All deaths.
Right.
So there are just certain ones that we're gonna come into,
so you just want to
Contact.
delete that section about hospitals?
I
Hospital
want to
patients?
delete the ones that aren't applicable to our agency.
yeah. So it doesn't say that the coroner shall be notified by the police department. It's saying the coroner shall be, the coroner's responsible, they have jurisdiction over all deaths, all unintended deaths, you know, that meet the criteria, right?
Right.
And that's what you were saying. So is there ever a time? Yeah, we call the coroner all the time for suicides in a home, right? A fatal car collision, you know, where somebody's not transported, they're dead right there. We call the coroner all the time, right? And it's their responsibility to come pick up, and transport the deceased.
Right.
But what I'm saying is that in many cases, if somebody goes in to the hospital for some medical reason, whatever it might be, that wasn't criminal, as you know, could be cancer, could be anything, and that person undergoes surgery, and they die in the operating room, there's never a time when the hospital is going to notify us. The hospital is going to notify the coroner.
Right. Well,
They
I
have a
don't,
morgue, and
so
then-
I don't think that would apply, because
You would know.
that you, A, wouldn't know, and B, policy applies to unintended deaths, right? In that case, someone's
Mhm.
getting surgery, they're being attended by a physician or other medical personnel.
So the
Right.
codes that they're quoting, so it's quoting, this H&S, this health and safety code. And it's like when you read that code,
Yep.
it starts out, a physician and surgeon, physician's assistant, funeral director, or other person shall immediately notify the coroner when he or she has knowledge of the death that occurred under the following circumstances, and it's got a few of these. And the other one is just talking about all the times that a coroner that the coroner needs to look into deaths. So it's the coroner's duties.
Right. Right.
So I don't know that this isn't, the government code that's directing the coroner to be called. The government code is saying it's the duty of the coroner to, inquire and determine the circumstances or matter of the death of
Right.
all of these things.
Right.
But nowhere does it say that the police department having jurisdiction over that area needs to notify the coroner. So I think it's just written oddly, but it doesn't seem that the government code or the H&S code is actually directing the police department to notify the coroner.
Totally agree with you. I don't think it is either. But I think my guess is that this is included in Lexipol policies because the purpose is to put the police in the position of facilitating the coroner's compliance with those obligations. And that's my
But we don't, the
best
coroner,
guess. Both because the,
To me, if this doesn't apply to police, then we just get rid of it. I just see that as one or the other. Otherwise, there's a premise that we're missing.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think the government code section and the health and safety code section say that the coroner shall be notified. It just doesn't,
specifically saying who.
Right.
No, it's actually just saying it's directing the coroner.
Yeah.
It's-
I would say if this was a general order that the Berkeley Police Department was creating separate from Lexipol, I'd be like, yeah, get rid of it. On the face of at least on the face of the statute, it doesn't seem to obligate the police to call. But my thought is, the fact that Lexipol has created a policy, they're doing it either because there's a legal requirement, statutory, common law, maybe there's some common law case we don't know about, extending that to the police department, or they're thinking that there's some sort of best practices.
I think that there probably are agencies, especially sheriff's departments, who work at the hospitals and things like that, who maybe that is part of their duties to notify the coroner and make sure that that's something that happens. Or, in smaller agencies, or, I mean, the thing is that they write it for, departments across the country, and so a lot of the things that they talk about aren't gonna be applicable to us, and so that's why we go through it and change it.
But that's applicable to the state because it references specifically state statutes. So
But
maybe you
the
can call
state
Lexipol-
statutes aren't saying these things.
Well, I don't know, they're either, it seems to me that they're either extending that because of either some case law that's been used to explain the statute or some best practices.
How about this?
Can someone just call the Lexipol and ask them why?
How about this? How about under N, Q, and S that are all highlighted here? How about in parentheses at the end, only if there is a request made to BPD or something to that effect? In
If
parentheses,
we happen to be walking by an operating room where a patient is not fully recovered.
and for
from
some crazy
anesthesia,
reason, a
I'm
doctor
gonna call
calls
the coroner,
us.
like, for sure.
If you hear code blue,
I mean-
All you guys are saying, what
I'm
you
sorry,
guys
we took my
are
time.
saying is, it all comes down to whether you have notice or not. So, either get rid of it completely or put something in there that says, to the extent that, the police department learns about it. Or in the case of the.
And I don't
police
recall
department
reading
learns
this
about
one,
these
so
circumstances.
I don't know. Was this removed already, or is it just?
No, I haven't issued it yet.
Right.
In the way that it would be issued is like that, but they're saying that to leave it in there, so I sent it to you saying what you wanna do.
Yeah, and
If you don't wanna be obligated on this, I would think that if I was a lawyer and had some case against the city and someone tried to claim that this did not obligate the police department to call, I think you'd have a good argument that it does. Because this is a policy that's specifically directed towards the police department. So the idea that you issue a policy that actually in the police department, but that somehow applies to hospitals and not to police officers, it's ludicrous. And so, if you're gonna have it in there, it seems like you should have it in the way that gives you the greatest litigation protection. And that's actually obligating people to do it. So, if you don't, fine, but then get rid of the whole thing.
Well, we could just cross out the government code and just say, when BPD officers need to notify the coroner, which has been in our old GO, but it's much, less specific than what they've got here. So we'll put it to the chief and ask him what he wants to do.
so hold for chief?
Yep.
Hold for chief. Hold for chief, please. Okay, then maybe we can move, oh no, shoosh. Jumped the gun on this one. Identity theft.
Yeah, I don't remember you guys having an issue with that one.
331.
Yeah, she doesn't have any notes.
On identity theft.
I thought that you guys agreed.
Don't show social security number.
Yeah, it was pretty.
Change your
it was
password
only a page.
irregularly.
I don't remember.
Use both caps and low and exclamation points. Never use your birthday. I wonder why there wasn't, something specifically said about vulnerable older people in this general order formatting theft. I thought that one time or the other was,
It might be under an elder abuse policy.
that's it.
Yeah.
So I know that elder abuse, there was an elder abuse policy whether this, well, you think it seems to me that it will fall, and this is just a regular penal code, what to do if something happens in terms of an investigation, right?
Mhm.
Any questions of identity theft? Seeing as there are none. Communications with persons with disability.
And I don't have any notes about, I actually had a note saying that you guys approved it in my old packet.
No, we didn't do any of this.
What was the number now?
332.
332, communications persons with disability. Yeah, see, I even put October 2018 approved by the PRC on my notes.
On
So,
October what?
October 2018 approved by the PRC.
So we're wasting time with it, we should be on 335.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think that in terms of the.
Were there any changes to it or no?
I mean, there was,
Or any no discussion?
There wasn't a
I'm
report.
not taking notes
No,
here.
no, no, I mean, sorry, on your mark, on your own.
Oh, on my markup?
I think the only
Yeah, I mean, I
change
think really the only thing that we changed was the complaint,
per the city.
procedure because.
The city
it's-
changed it.
Yeah, it's language from the city's AR.
And then the reporting or appointment by the operations commander, right? That changed too.
Yeah, I think just a title or something.
Mm-hmm, that's right.
Yeah.
So we are moving to limited English proficiency services.
What number was that?
That is number 335.
And there are no related general orders to any of these on the new business.
Are there any, so question, so I think the only thing that will relate to this is whether the Berkeley Police Department has designated police officers to speak a second language. Those police officers use on a regular basis when there's need in terms of whether it's an arrest or whether interaction with a member of the public. One, that's number one, question number one. And number two is, does the Berkeley Police Department, when they do custodial interviews, have hired anyone, any services outside of the department that are for translation services?
Yeah, so we have a service, that we can contact to get qualified interpreters, to either translate over the phone, on speakerphone, things like that. And then, we have multiple bilingual officers who have gone through the process of becoming qualified. Our dispatch always keeps a list of it, of those who are available and which language that they speak. And if they're not available, usually we'll call a nearby agency, if we don't wanna, if for some reason we can't use the interpreter, line.
This had no general order equivalent.
Right, none of the rest of the ones that we're gonna talk about have a general order equivalent.
I have a question.
Hmm?
Hmm?
I guess it was just a truck road by or something. I thought there was truck equivalent.
And all of our bilingual officers are certified by court certified.
Yeah, and then they have to be approved by the Berkeley HR department, right?
No, well, they have to go through a
Vetting process.
process, it's an examination process that we hire a firm that utilizes all court certified.
Yeah, I'm impressed, and I see that there is a venue for complaints that direct them directly to internal affairs with the ability to use an interpreter and filing of the complaint. I have no. My question was whether, and it seems, yeah, because it says that they're designated and go through a process approved by the department, whether there's some already been designated. And do you know how many languages? Just, this is just information, not necessary for,
That we have our officers that are bilingual.
yeah,
We have a list. I off the top of my head, I don't know how
probably
many.
Mandarin,
Yeah, quite a
Tagalog,
few.
Yeah, we have.
Spanish.
Yeah,
German,
Cantonese,
Sign.
yeah.
Sign language, of course, sure.
Yeah, there's actually quite a few.
Does anybody else have any questions on this one? Seeing as there are none, we can move on to child dependent adult and dependent adult safety. I'm interested in knowing why that is 340. It should be in the new packet too.
What's your question?
I've never seen this general order before.
It's not a general order,
There's
it's a
a-
Lexipol policy.
Oh, it's like, yeah, I mean,
You
so
said
I
all
know,
these-
yeah, I never,
all these ones
so
are-
what I'm referring is I mean, in 15 years, I've never, well, I'm counting, exaggerating, in 11 years, I've never seen this.
It might be a new Lexipol policy.
Cash, was something deleted under reporting?
Yeah. Is it because of California regulations for, confidentiality?
What was deleted?
For all arrests where children are present or living in a household, the reporting member will document the following information: name, sex, age, special needs, how, where, and with whom or with agency the child was placed, identities or contact information for other potential caregivers, notifications made to other adults, e.g. school, relatives, and then where all arrests or dependent adults are present or living in a household. So is it documentation or reporting? That was my question, is it the reporting, is all the red line out for the reporting based on? Is the reporting, first of all, based on the, who is it referring? For all arrests where children are present or living in a household, a reporting member will document the following information.
We just thought it was, from what I
Redundant?
remember, yeah, it was kind of redundant, I mean, if we're gonna document the names and all this information about these kids, usually the kids will have something to do with the reason why we're there. If I go in and arrest somebody, you know, on a DUI warrant, and there's 4 other people who live there, I'm not necessarily gonna get all their information. I'm not.
Get all the
going-
kids' information.
Yeah, get all the children's information and things like that, because I'm arresting an aunt or uncle that lives there that has a DUI warrant.
The question is, if let's say that it's a mother, right? And let's say that it's a divorced father, let's just be gender masculine here. And the divorced father has a DUI and is separated from his wife, obviously, or divorced. And he has full custody and is arrested for a DUI. Disposition or placement information if he or she is unable to care for him or herself. Isn't that information, wouldn't that be relevant for the,
Yeah,
then the
yeah,
other?
so that's all, that's what this whole policy is about, is if I arrest dad, and there's, you know, I need to make sure that the kids are gonna be taken care of, that's the whole point. But this reporting, section just seemed kind of almost more invasive as far as like going and talking to other people who are in the house who just happen to be there or who live there, when it's not necessarily related to the case or the arrest.
So, how do you deal with the circumstance? You go to arrest dad, there are 4 kids there, and dad's friend is there as well. Not a family member, but an adult friend. What do you do?
I wouldn't necessarily identify, I mean, unless he was a witness or.
Right.
he-
I think that's what this is trying to protect against, is to account for it's setting up a mechanism where you're saying, who are the kids? What are the circumstances in which they're gonna be cared for? Who are they gonna be set up with? Right? It's
and that's
forcing the
what
officer to go
this,
through
what this
that.
whole policy is about, right?
In the beginning
Right.
two paragraphs, it specifically